Malachi chapter 3, verse 16. Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord, and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not.
Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 24 and 25 prove that the Israelites will use the Bible to rule over their enemies. Please pay attention to how the words thread and soles of your feet are used. Please read the scriptures.
Deuteronomy 11 and 24. Every place whereupon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours. From the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost sea shall your coast be. There shall no man be able to stand before you, for the Lord your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that ye shall tread upon, and as he has said unto you.
All of Deuteronomy chapter 11 explains a lot about what Malachi chapter 4 is saying. Please read all of Deuteronomy chapter 11 when you have time. Please read Malachi chapter 4, verse 4.
Malachi 4 and 4. Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments.
The law is the Bible that the priests were ordered to teach the people of Israel. Malachi chapter 2, verses 4 through 7 proves this. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 1 through 3 proves this also.
All right, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. And it reads, And Moses called all Israel and said unto them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your ears this day, that ye may learn them, and keep and do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day.
This was done after Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses originally received the instructions about this in Exodus chapter 3, verses 1, 2, and 10 through 12.
Exodus chapter 3, verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Now we're going to move down to verse 10 through 12. And it reads, Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God upon this mountain.
Under this law, animal sacrifices were made for forgiveness of sins. Some sins were unforgivable under the law of Moses. Acts chapter 13, verses 38 and 39 proves this.
Acts chapter 13, verse 38 and 39. Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins, and by him all that believe are justified from all things from which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses.
Let's move on to Malachi chapter 4, verse 5.
All right, Malachi chapter 4, verse 5. And it reads, Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
Elijah the prophet in this verse is referring to a messenger that will come teaching the Bible before the day of the Lord, which is when Christ arrives. Malachi chapter 3, verses 1 and 2 proves this.
Malachi chapter 3, verse 1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap.
Luke chapter 1, verses 76 through 80 give more understanding. Please read the scriptures.
Luke chapter 1, picking up at verse 76. And it reads, And thou shalt be called the prophet of the highest, for thou shalt go before the face of the Lord to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation unto his people, by the remission of their sins, through the tender mercy of our God, whereby the dayspring from on high hath visited us, to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, and was in the desert till the day of his showing unto Israel.
Let's get another precept about the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Please pay attention to the words great and dreadful in the scripture.
Malachi chapter 1, verse 14. But cursed be the deceiver, which hath his flock a male, and voweth, and sacrifice unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen.
Now we know that the great and dreadful day is referring to Christ teaching the law. The day is dreadful to heathens because they will be reproved. Elijah the prophet in Malachi chapter 4 verse 5 is referring to John the Baptist. Let's read the scriptures to prove it.
The Gospel of Matthew chapter 11, picking up at verse 7. I'm going to read down to 13. And it reads, And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet. Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the day of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violence taketh it by force. For all the prophets in the law prophesied until John.
Verse 13 gives further proof that there were prophets during the time period from Malachi to John. Please read Matthew chapter 11, verses 14 and 15, and Matthew chapter 17, verses 11 through 13.
Matthew 11:14. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. All right, Matthew 17, verse 11 through 13. And it reads, And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall first come and restore all things. But I say unto you, that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist.